Here we are again. Massive welcome to all of our subscribers, first-time viewers, and of course LinkedIn members to another one-off special where today I'm going to be joined by the dynamic duo of Jason Carrico and Kodie Kennedy for a focus on how to bridge the communication gap between buyers and sellers in cybersecurity. And as always, we're going to be taking questions all the way through, so please make sure you drop them in the chat. Before we bring them on though, a little bit about our guests. Jason Carrico was told early in his career by an executive, go do all that salesy stuff. So he did. And over the last 20 plus years, he's brought his singular focus on that salesy stuff to 7 startups, including 3 Sequoia Capital-backed companies. Customer obsessed and human focused, he's provided sales leadership management support at acquiring companies, including Microsoft twice and Symantec. And while at Microsoft, he was a global black belt in security and compliance, a senior solutions sales leader who helped facilitate and lead projects, provide support for new product offerings, and develop strategies to optimize new billion-dollar businesses within Microsoft. And also, he's the host and producer of the All That Salesy Stuff podcast. More recently, Jason's now joined as the head of sales for Procyon, and we'll hear a bit more about those later. Next up, Kodie Kennedy. Kodie's the founder and CEO of Connect.io, a pioneering dual-sided platform integrating artificial intelligence. Connect.io revolutionizes the traditional vendor discovery and demand generation process. So very, very topical for what we're talking about today. He graduated from Texas State University with a BBA and started his career in the cybersecurity startup world with Axis Security before he'd even finished graduating. He was on track to graduate with an accounting degree, then decided to take a massive leap of faith and entered into the world of tech sales. Ultimately, though, this was a blessing in disguise. Do you think that every day, Kodie? We'll talk about that in a bit, because it's led him to see a problem in the industry which he aims to solve with Connect.io. In his spare time, the man just works all the time. We'll talk about that as well. He likes to golf, work out, and work. And he lives by the quote, work until you no longer have to introduce yourself. So taking a break isn't an option for this young entrepreneur. But before we bring them on, and for those new to the channel, I'm your host, Simon Linstead, and by sharing stories of best practices over the last few months, it's led to over 150,000 views here on YouTube. By you, our amazing, I believe, 8,238 subscribers. And because of your engagement and the community support, it's led to the launch in 2023 of our in-person community-driven events in the UK and US. I've said that with a focus on knowledge sharing, networking, and definitely no sales pitches. If you're interested, find out more on the website here, with 24 events planned across the UK, US, Europe, and United Arab Emirates in 2024. It's very exciting times. And we're in Austin, Texas, kicking off next week on January the 25th with Procyon, Quokka, and Connect.io. And of course, Kodie and Jason. Full list of our 24 events in 24 is available right there. And don't forget, in the community, which is where all of this has started, we have study groups, mentor sessions, and regular networking events to help you raise your game in cybersecurity, no matter what stage you are in your career. So make sure you check out the community if you haven't. Again, link is right there if you're brave enough to click on that QR code. If you'd like to support the wider InfoSec Live community, or indeed just buy me a cheeky decaf coffee, we do have a way you can show your appreciation right here on our YouTube channel with 3 tiers of membership, allowing you to show your support in any way that you can. But whether you join or not, being here and engaging with our content is what really matters. So if you're watching this live, please do like and subscribe, ring that bell to be notified of future content. And each and every one of our live shows gives you, our audience, the chance to engage with our guests. So again, make sure you drop any questions you might have in the chat. Time for me to stop rambling on. Let's bring the guys on. Welcome.
Wow, that was a killer intro. That was different from the first time. Nice.
I'm still jamming out from the intro.
Not as killer as that mic, Kodie.
Oh yeah,
Come on.
I should connect that brand on this, but
You should really.
Yeah.
Look, welcome. Thanks for
Copy
taking time.
infringement.
Thanks for taking the time to come on, both of you. I've given the audience a little bit of background about you both, but do you want to just fill in the blanks and talk a bit more about what you're doing now, and also what we're going to be talking about today? And I'm going to throw that to you first, Jason, if that's okay.
Sure, absolutely. So, I mean, I think you did a good job of explaining it. I think there's a question there. I think one of the most important things is I'm looking forward to getting Simon a cowboy hat and having that picture and video for everybody when we go to Austin. So I guess right now I'm kind of cowboy hat wrangler whenever we get out there. But yeah, in general, I think you described it. But, I'm going through that process of, I guess, trying to get this whole sales thing better for everybody in sales. All that salesy stuff is a quote. Because we're not trying to be salesy, right? Like if you get it, you get it. When I say all that salesy stuff, the idea is that, you can't just go do all that salesy stuff. There are no silver bullets. And yeah, I'm excited to talk today about what you and Kodie are doing. I think it's a key element of a new way to try to look at solving this buyer engagement problem. So thank you for having me on.
Thank you very much, Jason. I think for me, whilst I've got 30 years sales experience, sort of starting off on market stalls and selling frozen fish out the back of a van and home improvements and all this stuff, I've got very, very limited experience when it comes to tech sales. So to have the insights from yourself on here today is going to be absolutely amazing for me, and I hope for the audience as well. And Kodie, you bring a breath of fresh air to the industry, is what you do. And you've come in fresh-faced, eager and keen, and you've identified the problem in 5 minutes that's clearly prevalent and what we're going to be talking about today. Talk to me a bit more about where your passions come from for this and a bit more about Connect.io.
Yeah, absolutely. And first, I want to thank you for having Jason and I on. It's a pleasure. And then second, before you come to Texas, I want to give you one of the first, we'll call it Urban Dictionary definitions for boots. Sometimes we call them shit kickers. So
shit kickers.
Yeah, get you a pair of shit kickers. And then
actually, my wife did say the only thing she wants is a pair of boots. So I can now
like
get her a pair of shit kickers. Yeah,
get her a pair of shit kickers. But
are you going to explain why they're called shit kickers, Kodie?
So if you're on a ranch and you're walking around, you're gonna end up kicking shit, and you don't want to wear your nice boots for that. And your shit kickers are your beaters, like you don't work.
Your old boots. You see what us
like Luke Casey's and stuff like that. You don't work in those, but
in
if you have
rural
like a pair of ropers, then you're good.
In rural Norfolk, where we are, it's Wellington boots here. You see, that's what we wear. Those big ugly rubber things. No, I'll bring you a pair, Kodie.
I appreciate it. Maybe next time you come to Austin, I'll take you up on that.
And you have to wear one of these as well.
I can look like I'm from Peaky Blinders.
You can, yeah. Cool, blimey, governor. Yeah. So come on. Tell me where this passion's come from and how quickly you identified the problem. What happened?
Yeah, absolutely. So honestly, I don't have an answer for where the passion comes from. It's just a gift from the man above. Yeah, I would say that. But I know. Let's see. I was hired in June, and then it was November 8th at 8:16 p.m. I just I drank the juice, and I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I love working. Obviously, I live by the quote: "Work until I have to introduce yourself." And so while I was literally prospecting, and then on LinkedIn, and then I saw a post, and then from a CISO, he was just rambling on, and then at the end it was like there has to be a better form of communication between the end user and vendors. So my first immediate thought was Bumble, which is a dating app, Bumble, but in our world. And then I started thinking about it a little bit more and having conversations and learning and going from there. So it kind of took the idea of like a little bit of Netflix, a little bit of LinkedIn, a little bit of Bumble with a unique twist, take out all the star ratings and reviews, because coming from a startup, one of the biggest challenges we all face is brand awareness and then getting your name out there. And like if you're facing like the market leaders, I don't want to name vendors out here, but a $32 billion company versus a Series A funded company or a Series C funded company, you're going to run into a little bit of challenges.
Yeah.
But so coming from like being an SDR, I recognize that there is a huge problem when it comes to how we engage with the end user. In our case, InfoSec professionals, IT professionals, etc. And I feel like it was one of those things that's been under everyone's nose for the longest time, and I'm surprised it hasn't been done yet. To be honest with you,
I think the irony there, Kodie, is in a way, I think, and this might be my old jaded opinion, but it's technology that's kind of created a lot of these problems in the way that we try and do business, and it's ironic that it can be technology that solves that problem, right?
100%. And I think one of the biggest things is like with your current tools, and I'm not like there's a marketplace for everything, and I'm not saying any of this to bash any tools, any companies out there, but in my opinion, I feel like they've all been built and started to cater towards the vendor and how can the vendor do XYZ, and none of them have been built and started to how can I cater towards the end user and then add on value for the vendor. And that's what I did essentially for Connect. I built and got the idea of what am I going to do, and I'm going to hold my ground, stay firm on not selling personal information, and I wanted streamless engagement. And then once I solved all the nuts and bolts for that, that's when I started tacking on and adding on to what can I do for the vendor to make this both mutually beneficial. And that's where we are today. And now
Amazing.
we're redefining the engagement process.
It's super exciting. I mean, do you think it's difficult for you maybe to answer this because you work for a big vendor? Do you think the big vendors see the problem? I think the salespeople on the ground do, but do the CEOs of these businesses actually think that there is an issue? Because the numbers game clearly must be working. I mean, I'll address this one to you, Jason, because you've got 20 odd years experience doing this. Is it a problem for them, or is it a problem for us?
In us, do you mean the smaller companies like Procyon that I'm working with?
I mean the smaller companies, the people with the boots on the ground in the industry rather than the executives, I suppose is the question.
You know, I'd like to think that it is. I'm reading a book, Cyber Security for Builders. I put a link to it later after the show.
Ross Halliup?
Yeah, Ross's book. Yeah. And you know what?
I've ordered that.
I usually I'm in the middle of it, so I usually defer to him, but I don't know how wildly different it is than the rest of the industry, meaning, you know, IT sales, whatever that might be. So I think what's aware with everybody is what I'm going to use a salesy term here for everybody is this idea of top of the funnel, getting to the point where you actually get an engagement and have that discussion. I think if you frame it that way, that's a challenge that we all have. And yes, technology is part of what's driving that challenge because of the idea of email spam, right? The way that people reach out, the SDR, BDR engagement model, the KPIs that are set up internally. So I do think that that's a problem that every organization is looking to solve. Because again, I don't want to solve the problem of just outreach and basically getting a meeting. No. What I want to really get to is solving that problem of how do we have a real conversation. So you want to reduce that window as much as possible through things like the InfoSec Live group being here today, Kodie's, and then for everybody listening on the buyer side, you know, that idea of relationship building internally, we can't do it. So I'll give you an example. In Kodie's organization, let's say you're running, I'll back in the math for you on this. You have $1 million quota, your deal sizes are 50 to 100 grand. You're going to have 30 or 40 deals. You might have to have 100 relationships. I'm sorry, I can't expect that a rep knows the dog's name and the kid's name and everything for 400 different people in order to get to that point. No, that's where something like Connect comes in.
It's not viable, is it?
It's not scalable. So is everybody worrying about that? Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, there's always going to be a relationship, and anything is a relationship. Us just being here today is a relationship, 100%. Right?
Yeah,
it's not.
I think. Sorry, go Jason, go on. Sorry. No, I was just going to say, life is all about relationships, and if you look back to how we've evolved, social bonds have helped ensure that we've survived as a species through sharing food, caring for each other's children, and building those social networks. It all helped our ancestors meet the daily challenges that they had in their environments. And over time, as a race, humans began to gather at fires and shelters to eat and socialize. And this is how we see the beautiful city of Austin behind you in all its glory. That's only possible because of one thing, and that's relationships, right?
Yeah, exactly. Simon, I wouldn't even know you if it wasn't for a very, very good, close mutual connection. Shout out, Mr. J. Tilson.
Woo. Yeah,
And,
I've even got his mug here.
Hey, coffee with Jay. And I'd like to add on to Jason's answer, if I could,
please.
So because you asked about, do the high level execs know pretty much the grunt work and like we'll call it the trenches that sales reps, SDRs, etc. Are going into. I don't want to speak for anyone, but I don't want to necessarily say no, they don't, because at the end of the day, everyone started somewhere. So like they could have been an SDR back in the day, but things have definitely changed. But
they could have cold called next to a bathroom with a toilet flushing in the background for 3 or 4 years after they graduated college while they were working at a restaurant. I mean, maybe.
That sounds
anybody.
pretty specific. Was that restaurant happened to be Papa's?
It was. Yes, sir. You see how we know each other, but yes. Yes. They could have done things like that.
But yeah, so shoot, I forgot what I said. So from a high level perspective, I think that and again, this is my opinions do not reflect any of my employer's opinions. They're not associated with anything. I just want to put a little disclaimer out there. But I don't think that they know or understand the grunt work per se. It's more about the ROI. So, for example, like marketing, sales, when you come to paying for leads and you pay for these marketing events, you pay for X, Y, and Z, that could cost this much, but it's pretty much like a gamble. So if paying this much gets you one deal that's this much, then everything pays for itself and it's going to keep going. But one thing that I don't think is emphasized enough is you're still paying this much on a chance. Thanks.
That's all right. Just in case they missed it, I thought I better get that on there for you.
Yeah, thank you for that disclaimer. So you're paying pretty much for a gamble and a hope that one deal is going to come out of that. But what people aren't paying attention to is the excess amount of money that's just being, well, for simplicity reasons, wasted. Yeah. And that's one thing I wanted to address for Connect, because I mean, I have all the stats, data, you name it, I have it. Stuff does not have to be so expensive. Paying per leads and all that stuff, like I think it's 75% of all leads are immediately, statistically speaking, unqualified, and then leaving that 25% qualified, but 79% of that 25% never end in a sale.
I completely agree. Jason actually came out with a percentage the other day. I believe it was you, Jason. We were talking about how many people out there are actually looking to buy.
Isn't it 3% of the market at all times?
Yeah. I mean, you're going to think, so this is back to the solving unique problems, maybe understanding needs. And if you're going to be in a well-known Gartner 3-letter space or whatever it is, right, it's going to be a certain percentage. I wanted to note there's a couple questions here. So I think it's a common comment where somebody will say, well, it's all just about understanding business needs. I 100% agree, right? That's what we're essentially trying to get to. I put that in the basic blocking and tackling of qualification and sales and everything else. I think the difficulty now is more getting to that actual conversation and understanding. If someone can't do the basics of just trying to understand someone else's needs and go through the classic pain funnel, this is partially why I hate triangles, but if you all sales training has some sort of a triangle with a pain funnel, if you can't do that, you just do something else. But
yeah.
So I think that's a common statement too that we'll hear from vendors. Well, if you just understand our needs, I think the challenge that we have is, how do I get to that point, right? Do I go out and hire people? Do I hire Kodie? Do I use InfoSec Live? Do I use Connect? The standard KPI systems that are out there. We can't get away from those. To answer your question earlier, Simon, all businesses run that way.
Yeah.
Many of the people that are frustrated with the existing vendor outreach work for vendors that do their outreach that way. So what I'm trying to do is work with founders early stages and businesses early on to try to go build a different system. And I'll tell you, it's really difficult to go against that and say, okay, we're going to do things like your event. We're going to do things like
it's ingrained, isn't it? That's why it's ingrained in everyone.
Yeah. And I will say going, and maybe we can have a little debate here, but because you said the KPIs, like we can't get away from those for the traditional methods. But I think we all, the three of us, could agree. If you keep that mindset of we can't get away from the traditional methods, then you won't be. Yeah. If you take the mindset of, okay, I understand that is the traditional method, but we're doing what we're doing now to redefine and revolutionize it, then you have to give that time to build, mold, and grow. And if you don't give it time, then you're just sucked back into the traditional pay-per lead, et cetera, piss people off method.
Yeah. No.
And so you and I've had this discussion. I agree. Yeah. No, you're right. So there's an easy way to do this.
Turn my brightness up. Hold on. Carry on.
It's metrics driven, right? So we're all metrics driven on the leadership side. So that's metrics that end up in revenue between founders, between sales, and between, let's just call it, even VCs, right? If you want to come out and do anything and prove it, right, it's metrics driven. So you have to give a certain amount of time for the metrics to land there. And then you certainly have to give a certain amount of time to prove those metrics. Once we prove those metrics, let's say Connect.io ends up being the metric that we can say this is where we're going to put our money towards. Then it'll just blow up, because then we'll go in and say, this is what it did. This is what it translated into. This is true for a lot of the ideas of sort of changing this vendor behavior. If you want to change the vendor behavior on the buyer side, metrics driven for cold calls and emails and everything else, join InfoSec Live. Like, come to an event, talk to me for 30 seconds. I don't even have a list of people that are going to be doing cold calls and everything else like that. But that's how we all change it. We can't just change it by saying, like, yeah, we're gonna flip this all around and no company is going to do outreach anymore, and Jason's just going to hire a founder to come try to find me. It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. Yeah. I want to throw in not a curveball, but a slightly different point. And again, we were talking about this, I think, the other day, Jason, and it's knowing when being able to qualify out of a situation as a salesperson is probably as important, if not more important, of knowing how to qualify. And I think the problem we've got, not just in cybersecurity, but I'm sure across the whole tech industry, is the way that funnel works. It doesn't drive people to make that decision, because everyone needs a pipeline. And if that pipeline gets smaller because you're qualifying people, I'm not saying all salespeople do this, but a lot of people's pipeline isn't particularly well qualified. Would you agree with that, or do you think that's wrong?
That's true. So we had talked about how I'm a little bit older, and I'll date myself here. So I graduated.
You're younger than me, Jason. Yeah. You're all right.
Yeah, by a year.
You're older than me.
So I'll say, going back to all training, I graduated University of Houston in 1999 from what was then the first sales program. And even in your Dale Carnegie quotes, going back to wherever, qualifying has always been a part of any sales process. Yeah. So I don't care if you're following whatever you learn, whatever method that is. So then it really just becomes a question of, do the metrics, let's go back to this. This is actually an interesting point I hadn't thought about. Do the metrics prove that out? So if you have some metrics that say there's X amount of numbers and we want X amount in the pipeline, what will end up happening is people will inflate that pipeline portion in order to get to the other numbers. So how rigid and willing are you to do that? Now, I've worked at some great companies where we basically said, look, we don't care about that, right? Like we don't define that. That's not the metric that we look at. We would actually rather even pass on deals if it's a larger deal or it's better for the customer at that larger stage in time. But that has to be directed from leadership down, to answer your question. There is no sales training that says you shouldn't qualify out. If you find one, send it to me. If you're listening to Cardone or whatever, and he's saying don't accept no, by the way, don't do that. So don't do the basic, and what we do is way too complicated for cybersecurity sales. We're not, out there, what was it? Pitching frozen food or whatever.
Pitching frozen fish. Yeah, frozen fish.
So that's the other thing. A lot
industry.
Yeah, it's different because it's professional, right? That's the difference between
100%.
professional sales and then just general. And I don't belittle any of that. Like, we totally need all those other types of things, but a lot of people have this comparison. Well, they'll compare it to buying a car, buying a sofa. The CEO that went off on somebody for buying a sofa and how they compared selling their software solution to the experience they had buying a piece of furniture. I'm like, how is that even related? Like, it's not the same. So I mean, to answer your question, qualifying out is a part of every sales training. Following it is the difficult part.
It is, and again, that's down to the pressures of leadership, isn't it? Back to that filling up the funnel and the pipeline. Kodie, you look like you want to say something there, my friend.
Oh, I'm always dying to say something, but I'm trying to formulate my thoughts around this because I get and I understand and I know metrics are never going to go away because that is literally how every single company operates. Like, you have to have money coming in to continue operating and growing. So when it comes to like the vendor's perspective and reaching out, because I don't want to like stray away from, but we're trying to solve that issue, like the communication and the sales process and redefine it. It's just like going from your VPN to ZTNA. A lot of people didn't do that because they were comfortable with VPNs and they didn't know how more secure Zero Trust is. And it took that a while to happen, but
it's
now
education, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And that's one thing that I've included for Connect is just a conversation with anyone is better than a conversation with no one. Yeah. So if you could have a platform where you have unlimited quote inbounds, but the end user can stay anonymous, but you still, I'm not going to reveal too much, but you could still get relatively a good amount of information to gauge that this person is not a phony.
Well, you're qualifying them right there, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Actually, so I'll give a little sneak peek. So for vendors, before a user can reach out, they have to update their status as like they self-qualify. So I want to just cut through the whole marketing MQL funnel and say, okay, I'm Kodie Kennedy. I'm a user. I'm reaching out to Connect.io. Say it's on my platform as a vendor. I have an active project. When I reach out to you, you see that I have an active project right now, or I just want more information, or I'm just simply exploring. So then that's up to the vendor to take that conversation and go, like, that's up to the salesman and how they want to gauge that. And it eliminates the whole like pushing through this marketing funnel that I think is just honestly garbage.
And this is why
it needs to be like redone. It needs a tune-up.
It does. And this is why when we were introduced by Jay and you told me what you were doing, I've been trying to solve things on a smaller scale, I suppose, within the community itself. I mean, it's only got 6,000 members. Hopefully we'll be up to, with a bit of an advertising campaign and a push, 25,000 by the end of this year. But that's a drop in the ocean compared to the size of the industry and the events that we're doing.
4.6 million.
The events that we're doing, again, just a drop in the ocean. But the one thing we do for our events, when we've done last year and we'll continue to do this year, is we've paid really close attention to the kind of people that the vendors want along. So whilst there isn't a sales pitch allowed from the vendors, because that's completely against everything we're doing with these events, the sponsors know that the people within that room are potential customers. So on a smaller scale, we're solving the problem. And what I love about what Connect.io is doing is I think you can solve it on a bigger scale. So that's why I think we can work together so well on this.
100%. And that's exactly like, I mean, I think we hit it off day one since we met, and we saw we're both, I want to say aiming, we're both, the expectation is to solve this problem. And it's going to happen.
I think we both want to make a difference.
100%. Yeah. But that difference is the same difference. Like that's why I think, and that's why we both.
As Jason knows from heading up sales for a small startup, we're up against all the big boys out there as well. And I'm not going to name my event company competitors because that would be really bad and stupid because I'll be giving them free publicity. And I'm not going to name the name of the vendor I'm now going to tell you a story about. But we hosted an event, I can't even say when because that's going to give it away. We hosted an event last year with a big vendor in the industry, big-ish, not one of the biggest, but big-ish. And to get them to actually sponsor an event, support an event was really, really difficult. Even though I'd been introduced by their VP of sales into their CMO, their experience of events the previous year had been like this. So they'd spent, I think, $100,000 on 4 events where they had very few people turn up and hardly any of them qualified or of any interest, despite what the events company had said. And the other one they paid nearly $50,000 for, which was in the UK, and no one turned up. So I think there's definitely space for improvement. And the other thing I've heard is a lot of these event companies regurgitate the guests. So it's the same guests, different sponsors. And I think, again, if we can be honest about what the event is, it is sponsored by a vendor. This is what they do. This is what we're going to be talking about. And we target people who are interested in that. So you've then got people in the room who are interested in the subject and the opportunity for the vendors to start building relationships, which is what, coming back to Jason's point from the start, what this is all about, right?
So, I'm going to go off script here because we hadn't talked about this as a prep, but
we didn't prep at all, did we?
Yeah, we did. Look, I prepped for everything. I sent you a document.
You prepped. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm going to bet, and I don't know, this is what I'm trying to figure out. This would be interesting. I'm going to bet that no pitch part is a little bit difficult for people to get their heads around. And then even from a salesy perspective, the only way I can really tell whether or not something is a pitch is sort of that salesy tingling that I get in myself, right? So I think there's this whole definition
salesy senses.
Right, whatever, right? So what we're saying is, like, if I bet, and I'm just going to bet, right, that whole idea of saying, well, you can't really pitch and you can't do some of the other things, depending on, everybody defines a pitch differently. So when we say that we're not pitching, I think it's just a term, again, of like, is that a conversation? Is it a qualifying component? I mean, you could make an argument for a lot of the people on LinkedIn that get upset with buyers, like, me just saying what my company does is a pitch, right? I mean, it could be 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And so this is the kind of stuff that keeps me up at night, that I struggle with, of like, so what are we trying to solve there? And then again, that's the idea of where maybe Kodie's product can come into play and say, okay, yeah, we want to hear about the product. Then we know what it's about. We know what the conversation is. Back to that understanding the business, we can have a better idea of what we're going to talk about. And then we can go into it directly related to that conversation, like of what their needs are. We have that defined ahead of time and we know what we're going to talk about.
And to go off that, Jason, great. I love that. Shout out my manager, Jeff Luttrell. He says it perfectly. So if you're calling someone, like, the chances of SDR getting the decision maker on a phone for a Fortune 500 company being like, hey, buy my, or pretty much this, what it pretty much is, like, sit to see if you want to buy my stuff and change your entire security footprint, your cybersecurity footprint. So that's like, you're I don't even know what to compare that to. That's just probably not going to happen. But the thing is, instead of pitching, we could forget that and go into educating, because there's nothing wrong with educating individuals on modern technology. Because if you educate, and that's another thing for brand awareness, if you're just like, hey, look, we can have a meeting, we could just walk you through our platform. There's no like commitments, no nothing on the side. And then like, we'll throw you lunch or something. Like, I understand that you don't have a project, but say, like, maybe if you like this and you find value in this enough, then further on down the line, people remember things and they're gonna be like, oh wait, this.
Yeah. I mean,
so the vendor, but so you can't just, I think it's more about getting your name out there and like your brand awareness and just educating the market versus hey, I launched tomorrow, or I launched yesterday, and this is better than the market leader that's a $32 billion company by me. And it's like, I don't even know who you are. But if you're like, hey,
Yeah. So
I
yeah, I'm gonna
compete
flip
with
the script. Yeah.
XYZ,
Right.
I just want to
Yeah.
educate you on what we do. And then, sorry.
So I have this discussion all the time. There's actually a question in the comments. So Simon, I don't want to cut you off.
There's that's all right. I
Yeah,
was just going to do
address one of
exactly the
those.
same
Yeah.
as what you're doing, Jason. Just starting to address some of these questions. Do you want to take the larger one? Can you still see that? I'm not sure who it's from.
Yeah,
It
I can
says
see the larger
LinkedIn
one.
user.
So
Yeah, I can't see them.
first off, this is super interesting because it is all psychology, by the way, to answer part of that question.
Yeah.
I'm still a little bit having a hard time wrapping my head around the pitch thing and being so cringy on that. So I've had this discussion all the time of like, hey, I'm going to call and I'm in the same industry and I'm a CISO. No, I'm not. I mean, I'm setting up that whole conversation from the beginning, saying that I understand exactly what they do. Do I want to hire a CISO as a salesperson? Absolutely not. So let's make sure that we sort of like, I've been a CISO handler for years, kind of like a wrangler of like ex CISOs that come into these big companies and we pay them to go around. And it's funny because one of the first things they'll typically go in is like, okay, I'm not a salesperson. Here's my 10 slides and the demo pieces that we're going to do over here. And here's exactly how we're different by a competitor. And here's why you should like us compared to ZTA. If you tell me that's not a pitch, you're crazy.
It's a pitch.
So the other thing too is we have to allow also for people to fail. What we're calling as a pitch is me just having a conversation and working with someone early in career isn't going to be great at that. Right. So I'm just going to throw that out there. That's going to happen. So what happens is we have these conversations and people go in and go, well, that felt so salesy and that felt all the other part. Yeah. I mean, to some degree, right? Like the VP of sales at like one of these big companies you talked about is way better at sitting down with the CISO and having a conversation than this person that's cold calling them. That's what they're paid to do. So, to your question of, do I call and say that I'm a consultant and that my job is to be your consultant? No, I also don't call and say, I'm purely on the sales side. Again, we're all defining pitch differently, but that was a pitch. I mean, a pitch is, hey, my company does X, Y, Z, and it fixes all your problems and it does all those things. That's a pitch.
I stand corrected. You're 100% right. But it might have.
It's just a friendly pitch.
I'm the first person to say I was wrong. And look, I was wrong. Yes, like at the end of the day. So I guess I was just trying to glorify it in my head, but you're right. A pitch is a pitch is a pitch is a pitch.
Yes, pitches are cringy.
How can you? Sure. But how can you? It's just like this is why.
How do you
change the world? Because this is like, I just don't want to get down into it too much, but it's just I'm so eager because this is like that question that, like you said in the beginning, Jason, there's no silver bullet, no answer. It's like you just got to keep doing what you're doing, and until we can solve it, when we will solve it, there's no other alternative.
I think for me, adding value is how we win at anything, right? And it also makes us feel pretty good as well if we're helping other people. And if you want to consider that as a sales tactic,
I mean,
let's say we flip the script. Yeah,
it's called value selling.
Yeah,
and so that actually goes right on to. So I saw Kevin's question about if you could build a presentation about the product. What is it? If you could build a presentation. Sorry, I'm in full screen mode. If you can,
I'll tell you what. Let me bring all the questions up now because we've got 5-10 minutes left. So we've got about 7 or 8 questions. Let me bring them up.
Kevin, to answer that. So there are tools like that, and it's really, really good data and good information. But at the end of the day, like one thing that is, like if you put it in an email with all these email spam filters now, like if there's a link, if there's an attachment, even if you have an image in your signature, spam. And you could send them through LinkedIn. I mean, you can mail them. You could. It's just.
Wouldn't it be nice though, Kodie? Wouldn't it be nice, Kodie, if these people had a platform they could go to whenever they needed to source a solution that would enable them to do that?
And earn continuing educational credits while doing it. Absolutely. anonymously. Wait, anonymously without having their information sold, and they have exposure and they can talk to anyone and anything. Oh my gosh, that would just be
at least we haven't
revolutionizing.
turned this. At least we haven't turned this into a sales pitch, right?
Yeah, not at all. No, I'm not. This is a sales pitch. This is a facts pitch. I'll just say that right now. Like, this is a fact. This is, yeah.
I love it. Let me just read this question out, and I'll get both of your thoughts on these questions. This is from Prashant. Should resellers respect clients' boundaries by not presuming they're the experts of the client's environment from the start? And would a better tactic to foster a working relationship? Jason.
My brain's not working.
I'm going to answer this the same way I'm going to answer any question related to that. Honesty and authenticity drive behavior. And if you start from a place, going back to your other part, where you think that what you're actually doing is working with someone to try to help solve their problems, and you're doing something good for the world by doing that, and then by doing that, it actually makes the organization better, and you reframe your mindset that way, then presuming, right, there's a bunch of words in there that I sort of would want to figure out. Presuming would be something that you come with a point of view. I would think of it more like that instead of presuming. And then I would also I really think about that word relationship a lot, right? Like, what does that mean? Foster a working relationship. If it begins with honesty and authenticity, then naturally it ends up at a point where you're trying to help solve their problem. So your answer on that would be, I don't know, have a conversation, figure it out. It depends on the other person. And however you want to define fostering that relationship, try to do that.
I think it's back to what we were talking about earlier, which is, I suppose, getting all the soft and hard facts you can from the client and understanding what their challenges are at the moment. And if it isn't the right time, you can still maintain and build that relationship. You don't just have to walk away from that, because we've all seen how frequently CISOs change roles. So you've got to look at the long game as well. Unfortunately, the way people are targeted, the long game doesn't help, does it?
Yeah. And to go a little bit deeper on that is, so in my mind, I'm picturing, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm picturing a CISO has a problem. They're partnered with an MSP or a channel. And then is that the relationship we're talking about? Correct?
A reseller. Let's assume that it's a reseller.
So, okay, reseller. So just like your AT&Ts of the world. So it's like
other companies also have this problem. Just like to make that statement. I'll put a disclaimer up on the bottom for you, Kodie.
I should probably really turn my filter on before I get too deep into it. But so another thing is that I have like it's just a little internal battle when it comes to resellers and stuff, is because for what if, so company A has a problem, and we'll say company 1 is the reseller, and then they tell the reseller exactly what it is, but say there's a technology that launched yesterday and that could solve everything beautifully, but no one knows about it. And one thing to work with these resellers, cybersecurity vendors and startups, they have to meet certain requirements and certain thresholds.
I thought you just had to pay Gartner a load of money. Is that not right?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to just go bankrupt,
we don't have enough time to go through the inner workings.
Yeah,
but again,
I love Gartner. I don't want to get sued. No.
To be fair, I don't love Gartner. I've only been in the industry 3 years, so this might be an uneducated position, but I think they're part of the problem.
Okay, I just didn't want to get sued for defamation.
But we'll move on from that though, because we don't want to start that.
Yeah, do we have any other questions? Or we? Let's move on.
That's another thing. It's the magic quadrant of the world and stuff like that. It's like there could be something that just wipes the market leader off the board, but they're not in the magic quadrant, and then companies or users don't entertain or talk to vendors that are not in that magic quadrant. And it's like,
maybe this is how founders feel when they hire me. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, that's I mean, hey, we got this great thing that nobody knows about.
You know what? I think I just spoke like every single founder I spoke known to this. Wow. Okay, I get it now.
Watch out for incoming lawsuit from Gartner. Just making a note on that, just in case I forget. Let's move on to the next question. Prashant's asked another one here. Should resellers who use social engineering and phishing type recon in order to get contact details to get business be blacklisted from being used by companies?
Is this like data scraping
I think
or data mining? I meant.
Yeah.
I will definitely not call out.
I think it's
huge
every company uses this. Every big company does this, don't they? Or am I wrong?
Yeah. So I'm not
Broad saying
I'm not one of the I'm not one of the people that pulls those levers. Let me put it that way. I pull other levers, but I don't decide sort of how marketing gets some of that detail. So I'm probably not the best.
Okay. No, basically Jason has no fingerprints on those levers.
I plead the fifth,
I don't,
to be honest. But I will say, if it helps, Connect.io does not sell such information and does not allow data mining or web scraping. Because if you think about it,
you have to say it in that voice, Kodie, or not, I'm not sure.
I mean, that's the hard. So Google's a cybersecurity vendor, right? So like, how do we answer that question? Yes, we should blacklist Google. Okay, I don't know. Like Google's a cybersecurity vendor.
Microsoft's just moved to Google. It's going to be a pain if we do that.
Right. I mean, how do we blacklist them? Okay, yeah, I'm down for that. Sure, my company won't do that, so we'll
are we talking about
I don't know.
Maybe
next question.
Fair enough. Yeah, asking the
Mr.
Yeah, you're gonna get me in trouble.
You're gonna get yourself in trouble. I haven't done anything. I'm the one getting sued by Gartner.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
I pled the fifth.
Mr. Paul Rogers, great to see you here. It's been a long time. Paul was one of the first members in the InfoSec Live community, and I believe, Paul, you are a security leader based in Colorado way. So would you agree that it comes down to who you know and the relationship instead of trying to sell them something? Jason.
Sorry,
Kodie.
I agree that everything starts off with not trying to sell something, right? So we talked about what an actual qualification is and the other component of that. When there's a mutual agreement, and Carlos will like this if he's listening because we both follow like the same kind of policy here. But yes, I mean, it comes now the part about who you know, of course, right? I mean, I'm going to actually break out in an account in a pipeline review, like a champion. I don't know, is it Paul? Maybe your champion is a vendor, right? Maybe that's a part of the relationship, people that are influencers as related to that. And then the goal is to tie it all back to business value. Now, is that a point where we say we're selling something? I don't know. Again, back to the idea of like semantics and wording is important. But yes, I mean, of course, I think that the idea is that you don't want to come off salesy, and we sort of all know when we feel that way. And I have a plug here. I have a podcast, all that salesy stuff, where I actually break down all the different components. I'll put in a link.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know where I can type in here, but so we break down
drop it in the private chat. If you drop it in the private chat, I'll then drop it in the main one. Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, and I agree that again, it's defining what a relationship was. A relationship could just mean in some situations me walking down a hallway with a decision maker and a CIO and understanding the business well enough to translate that over to them. So when they go in to make that deciding factor, they understand how that helps. Not a pitchy way. Right? I mean, 100%. Good question.
True. Sorry, I'm trying to do two things at once here. I've just found that All That Salesy Stuff podcast on Apple. So there's a link there for the Apple one. Okay, have we got any more questions? Let's have a look. So we've covered that one. KevTech, as always, great to see you. It's been a long time, actually. If you can build presentation on why that product is needed and how it saves the company money, that's more important than trying to sell something. And then he finishes that off with, that's why building a relationship is important too, Paul Rogers. Relationships with the customer can help you or break you. I think that's very, very true.
Yeah, let's talk about why that's hard in our industry, because when I first started building these value propositions 20-something years ago, we hired a consultant to come in and do a flip chart, and we would take cost of breach and then divide our product into it. And it sort of sounded like we were showing up with a cash machine from a casino, where we were saying, you know, if a breach is $5 million and our product's only $50,000, why wouldn't you buy it? So it all goes back to how you do that, basically. Of course, you should be talking about the value of a component and the ROI pieces of it. I think what makes cybersecurity sales so challenging is that most people tune out on that. And this is me coming from like multi-$100 million, you know, things that I've worked out all the way through building these much bigger ROI models, is that most of the time, because the vendors build these in large enterprises, they've kind of gotten to the point where they don't really accept them anymore. So I think that yes, it's just a little bit more difficult than it would be in most sales situations.
100%. Kodie, anything to add on that?
Sorry, I was actually pulling up a.
Were you reading a book then?
No. I have this. I put this one. I built these 2 one-pagers that actually helps out with stuff like this. So I was pulling it up real quick because like building. I'm trying to think how to word this. Do you want
to bring your one-pager up? Do you want me to show it on the screen?
Yeah.
If you share it, I can put it up for you. Okay, that's a no, isn't it?
So somebody made a comment that I like. Let's hit it on this. Translating that value is your job. That's a good comment. So yes, do you use that stuff? Yes. Translating that value is your job.
Sorry, I'm trying to do 2 things at once again. Kodie, do you remember what you were going to say?
Yeah, so I feel like first to answer the question, every relationship it's amazing to expand your network. Like I will talk to anyone, any way, shape, form, color, they're on the moon, I don't care. Like I love just learning and meeting new people. And you never know where those relationships are going to take you. If one day like it ends in a sale, that's amazing because it's just like a domino effect. But at the end of the day, that could also hurt you because say something happens and then something goes wrong. It's just like a review if you think about it. If something goes wrong with something you sold them or whatever the case may be, or you sell them something, you never talk to them again for 2 years and like, what the heck? Then they could spread that around and tell their fellow colleagues or their network, like, do not buy from XYZ vendor because of this is how they're going to treat you. And so it's like 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other.
What goes around comes around.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
The saying is here. I want to finish off on just asking Jason a question about the different challenges he's faced working in those big enterprise companies and then working for small and, dare I say, agile startups. What's the difference there, and what are the biggest differentiators when it comes to challenges for you as a sales leader?
Oh man, so as part of what you brought up is why sometimes I even question why I do it. So it's it's a lot different, right? It's a lot different when you work at a company with name recognition that spends hundreds of millions of dollars probably on outreach, and then the difference is that impact. I will say the difference is that when you solve those challenges for a smaller organization, you feel the impact. And that's what I've always really enjoyed. For me, it's really, what are you learning from it? What impact does it make? And again, I have to start off with this idea and this mindset that we're doing this to try to make things better. And, that's pretty cool. And I'm, I don't know if the blessed is the right word to be able to do it, but I've been able to do it for like over 20 years. So the challenges are everything that we talked about, right? Like I barely could scrape enough budget to come out and see you guys if we're just really getting together on the reality of it, right? So can we do $50,000, $75,000, $100,000 events? Of course not. And if those events are what it takes to get, top of the funnel the way that it's always been done, that's just how it's continued to be done. So this is really fun trying to look at solving this a different way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's it. And that's another. I'm gonna stop selling Connect. So never mind. But
do I think you're not selling it, Kodie. You haven't tried to close anyone on this.
Yeah. To address that, because the whole like $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 on an event, that's one reason why I've priced it the way I have, is because there's no reason, absolutely no reason. Like I've done the overhead costs, I've done everything. Absolutely no reason this stuff needs to cost that much. And people, they could raise a red flag of, oh, it's priced too much. That means there's something wrong with it. Oh, it's cheap. No, it's simple. It's beneficial and it's valuable. It like just because it's not in a Louis Vuitton store doesn't mean it's not useful, So it's like there's just it's built to mutually benefit both sides of the market without gouging marketing sales budgets and protecting the end user. But Jason, I did have a question for you when it comes to working for the behemoths and then the startups. So they always say like the Oracles of the world, etc. When you call in, I have a couple of buddies that work for large companies, and they've been told during their training, like, just saying you're with Oracle is going to get you in. Just saying you're with Google is going to get you in. How could you speak on that? Is that true? Like, have you seen like a difference of saying, yeah, I'm with Microsoft versus saying, yeah, I'm with Procyon? Or is it just like
obviously,
at
yes.
the end of the day,
Yes,
people just don't like?
most people can't pronounce
yes.
Procyon. Or if anybody on the call has actually heard of us, I'd be surprised. So I think what it allows you to do is focus more on quality conversations and less time on all the stuff that I don't like doing, which is top of the funnel.
Mm-hmm.
Let me put it a different way. So that it's not going to solve everything, right? But you're going to be able to have true business level conversations that is very difficult for a smaller organization to be able to have. I was doing things at the CFO, almost CEO, CIO level that wiped out 25 to 30 vendors that had never been at that level because I was able to tie that together to a business need.
There you go. That's the difference, and it again comes back to your point about it all being about relationships, and that's why a small agile startup like Procyon, that's why you are gold dust to them, Jason, because you've got 20 years worth of those relationships, right?
And I also think it's about the hustle and the grit and the want for it, because I feel like if you have a big name behind you, you're just waltzing in like you own the place, and then you just expect it to happen. But if you're with a startup, you make it happen.
You do. I mean, I've worked for big, what we call blue chip here in the UK, financial institutions, and I've got to be honest, I never fitted into that corporate mold at all. And my whole life has been one of entrepreneurial type business ventures. 25 years in financial services, but before that, setting up self-employed ventures, selling mobile phones when I was a kid. And I think you have to be a certain type of person to enjoy that.
Well, you had phones back then?
Huh? Yeah, although they were this big.
Wow, I thought y'all were sending like pigeons, like fly.
Yeah. We did that before. Yeah, I actually had a pager, Kodie, before that, a little pager, and then we had phone boxes where we used to have to put coins in. And my first ever attempt to be a hacker would have been breaking matchsticks and putting them in the collection drawer of the phone. So when people's money got returned, it just hid at the top, and I used to go around once a week. I'm probably going to get arrested for this, and pull the change out of the bottom. And they weren't shekels, Kodie. No, before you are.
I'm sorry.
Oh, dear. Okay, look, we're pretty much out of time. It's been probably the most amusing chat I've had on here for a long, long time. Seeing as Kodie's done a bit of a sales pitch, I have dropped in the chat a link to Procyon for anyone who wants to check them out, a link to connect.io that Kodie's been talking about, and also a link to Quokka.io. I hope I pronounced that right. Who are also a sponsor. Quokka.
Quokka. Ilya is a good friend of mine, so we'll.
Okay. Shoot, I messed it up. My bad.
Okay.
Sure, he'll be on.
How do we pronounce that, Jason? Do you know?
Ilya.
Yeah.
Ilya.
Okay, but we got that right.
Wait, so is it Quokka or Quokka?
Quokka or Quokka? Quokka.
Quokka.
Which one?
I thought it was Quokka.
Yeah,
I'm going with Quokka. We'll go with Quokka. Right. And seeing as you've all
That's just your English accent. It's all the same.
It's what it is. Quokka. Yes. Potatoes. Yeah. I'm going to do a quick pitch now because I want to get everyone's opinion who's watching this and you two on the call about our new branding for our events for this year. So this is hot off the press. There might be some typos in here. And I might be giving the game away a little bit by sharing it, but I'm going to flick through it really quickly. So don't pause and look in on this, but here we go. So this is our event prospectus for RSA with the new branding. Talks about us, the fact that we know that community is powerful. Talks about the events and the fact that we know that the real conference magic happens at the side events, giving you a chance to build those relationships. And it then talks about the different types that we're doing at RSA. We're doing a breakfast meeting, we're doing a fine dining round table, and we're doing an open mic networking event. Then it talks about why sponsor us, bit about the banners and where your logos are going to go for the events. If you've got the money to have a big one, there's a big one. Bit about where we're doing it, and then again, what you get for it with the email, social media, YouTube, and community stuff. So I just wanted to share that with you. See all our sponsors there from the last year. Just wanted to share that with you and get your thoughts and opinions, both of you, Kodie and Jason, on that quick flick through that new, I'm not going to call it a pitch deck. Let's not taint it with that. Let's call it an event prospectus, which is what I've titled it at the front. But any thoughts on that? Do you think it looks all right?
You just single-handedly blew any Connect.io marketing collateral out of the water with that 15-second little walkthrough. And
it's not not all about what it looks. It's the quality within, Kodie, that matters, my friend. Jason, any thoughts?
The engine still has to run. The car has to be pretty for the engine. The car has to be pretty for you to get in it, though. So it looks really good.
Thanks. Jason, what did you think?
I know we're short on time. A great, whatever we want to call it. I don't care, pitch, whatever. It was awesome.
Thank you very much. It's very kind. And for anyone watching, obviously, if you're interested in sponsoring any of our events this year, please do reach out. You can grab me on LinkedIn or in the community. And for those who haven't registered yet, who are in the Austin area, I think we've got 7 or 8 seats left. Say seats, it's a standing event. 7 or 8 standing spaces left for our leadership networking event next Thursday. And where is it, Kodie? The venue, please?
Colton House Hotel. Off of South Congress.
I love that. And what time does it start, please, Kodie?
5 p.m. Central Standard Time.
And do you know what time it finishes?
9 p.m.
Lovely.
Central Standard Time.
Excellent. Thank you very much. If you're interested, if you're interested in attending the event, reach out to myself, Kodie, or Jason. We'll all be able to help. Do you mind before we go if I just drop, or Ilya? Do you mind if I drop you guys' LinkedIn profiles in the chat if anyone wants to connect with you? Let me just do that.
Thank you for the free marketing. Please connect with me. There's a reason I play chess. There's a reason why I named it. I named it that. You're gonna connect on LinkedIn. Thanks for the marketing. Appreciate it.
There we go. Brilliant. There we go. Let me put this in. There's Jason's LinkedIn. Any final words from you two guys while I'm copying and pasting things from LinkedIn?
It is an honor and a blessing to be on this call with y'all or this live stream with y'all, and I really appreciate it. And I'm very, very excited for what's to come next week.
Me too.
And I just
want to get you a pair of shit kickers.
Yeah,
it's the hat. It's the hat I want. It's the hat. And are we going to do a live stream next week from Texas? Right?
Yes,
100%.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, I didn't keep this fancy
your eyes
mic
posted. It is exactly. You have to bring that with you. Jason, any final words before we wrap things up?
No, I just want to thank you. I'm really looking forward to being out there, and let's go prove that this works.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Guys,
we don't have goals. We have expectations. Amen to that.
Thank you so much for taking the time to come on. Everyone who's been in the chat, thank you so much for your questions. If you're coming to Austin next week, see you then. If not, see you back on this channel or in the community very, very soon. Take care. See you later.
Thank you.